Hello everyone, welcome to another developer webinar on Bitrix24 REST API. Today our focus will be on unique automation tools, specifically CRM automation rules and triggers. I'll delve into how app developers can enhance built-in Bitrix24 capabilities using these tools. Let's get started. Indeed, our agenda today is packed with valuable insights. I won't just cover technical aspects, but will also provide recommendations for user scenarios. I firmly believe that choosing the right scenarios not only enhances the relevance of your solutions, but also simplifies your development process. Firstly, I'll discuss the cases where adding custom automation rules proves useful and how it benefits your users. Next, I'll guide you through the process of registering your own automation rules in Bitrix24, highlighting the nuances of rule execution with result return. And lastly, we'll explore various scenarios utilizing triggers. I'll demonstrate how to register these triggers in Bitrix24 and initiate their execution. I'm excited about today's plan, so without further ado, let's get into it. CRM automation rules in Bitrix24 are predefined sequences of actions that are automatically executed within user-configured scenarios. These scenarios can be set up in deal funnels, lead funnels, business processes, and what's known as smart scripts. Now, what sets today's discussion apart is our perspective. We won't be looking at these tools as users who combine pre-existing actions to achieve automation. Instead, we'll view them as makers of these individual actions. Let's dive into automation rules customization interface in the deal funnel. As you may know, this is where the Bitrix24 administrator defines which operations should be automatically performed when a deal progresses to the next stage of the funnel. What actions does Bitrix24 offer to the user in this context? Sending a message to the client, creating a task, modifying deal data, and more. Here is the exciting part. Using the REST API, you can add your own automation rules. Once integrated, end users can employ these rules to automate their scenarios after installing your application. Extending Bitrix24 functionality offers a limitless field of possibilities. Think beyond standard automation rules. For example, while default task automation in Bitrix24 might lack checklist support, your custom rule can fill this gap. Likewise, you can create rules that work with external mailing services, offering users flexibility beyond the built-in email engine. Your automation rules can bridge Bitrix24 with external systems, generate invoices in an external accounting system, send messages via an external chatbot, or retrieve data from an external ERP system. If your application integrates Bitrix24 with other products, automation rules tailored to manage these products become a valuable user asset. Imagine automation rules that performs intricate tasks. For instance, a rule could gather time data from specific products, generate an invoice, and send it to the client, all triggered by simple user action. Another rule might add a specialized chatbot to a customer dialog, coordinating deliveries and updating deal information seamlessly. For end users, it's a streamlined process. They execute a single business action from their funnel stage, unaware of the complexities behind the scenes, all thanks to your application. In simple terms, if your application provides users with specific operations through your interface, a valuable addition would be creating custom automation rules for the same actions. These rules operate within automated scenarios that users can customize directly within Bitrix24. It's about empowering users to automate tasks they perform manually, enhancing their experience and efficiency within your application. To add your own automation rule in Bitrix24, you can use the BizProsRobotAdd method specifying these main parameters. Code a unique symbolic identifier for your application rule. Handler, the URL of the automation rule handler where requests from Bitrix24 will be sent. The name and description of the automation rule in Bitrix24 user interface. Properties, an array of parameters for the automation rule that users can set. Return properties, an array of values returned by automation rule after execution. Users can use these values in succeeding automation rules. Use subscription, a parameter indicating whether Bitrix24 should wait for a meaningful response from the automation rule handler. This is crucial, and I'll talk more about it later. And document type, binding the automation rule to specific types of Bitrix24 objects, such as leads, deals, or tasks. Possible types are specified in the documentation. So let's create our own automation rule that generates an invoice in an external accounting system based on data from a Bitrix24 deal. The example is created using our CREST SDK, which you are already familiar with if you've taken the application video course. In the install PHP file, we register our automation rule by calling the BizProsRobotAdd method. We've specified all the necessary standard parameters, with the main ones being document type and handler. In the properties parameter, we specify that we expect the identifier of the deal from Bitrix24 in the handler of our automation rule, based on which an invoice will be generated. In the handler PHP file, at the very beginning, we'll log the data that Bitrix24 sends to our handler. After installing the application, we can customize the automation rules and the deals. Let's select the appropriate stage and ensure that the automation rule in CRM has been added. The magic has already happened. Now let's take any deal and move it to the stage where our automation rule is active. Let's open the log file where the received post request was saved. The document ID key will help us understand which CRM object the automation rule was called for. The document type shows the type of the object. And most importantly, in the properties key, we can find the deal ID parameter, to which Bitrix24 passed us the deal ID. The received data is sufficient for us to call Bitrix24 for details. Using the CRM lead get method, we retrieve the data of the deal for which the automation rule was triggered. We can then obtain customer data by taking the contact and company IDs from the deal using the CRM contact get and CRM company get methods. Likewise, we could retrieve the product items from the deal and any other necessary information. In real-life situation, this data could be used to generate a correct invoice in an external accounting system. Automation rules can also provide data. This data can be utilized to create parameters for subsequent automation rules, enhancing the flexibility of the business logic automation. When registering an automation rule, we use the return properties parameter to specify the data our rule will return. It's crucial to set the use subscription parameter to Y so that Bitrix24 waits for a response with data after calling our automation rule. Back to our case study on integrating with an external accounting system. Let's consider a scenario where we not only generate an external invoice through the automation rule, but also create a corresponding PDF file. Naturally, having information about the generated PDF file in Bitrix24 would be valuable for us. To return data from an automation rule, we require the BizPros event send method. This method is crucial for sending data from the application back to the Bitrix24. It has several parameters. Event token. This is a unique key generated each time an automation rule is called from Bitrix24. Bitrix24 sends this key to us in a POST request to the automation rule handler. Return values. This is an array of return data. The array must include the parameters described in return properties when registering the automation rule. This is how the mechanism for returning data from an automation rule operates. When our automation rule is triggered in CRM, Bitrix24 sends a POST request to the automation rule handler. Among other data, it includes a unique event token. After sending the POST request, Bitrix24 pauses the execution of subsequent automation rules until it receives data from our automation rule. We must return the data from the application by calling the BizPros event send method. This doesn't necessarily have to happen directly in the automation rule handler. There are cases where the automation rule logic requires extensive data processing and that cannot be completed in a single hit. The crucial aspect here is the correct use of event token. It should be extracted from the POST request in the automation rule handler and, if necessary, saved on the application side for future use. Let's return to the example code. In the install PHP file, add the invoice and invoice URL elements to the return properties parameter and set the use subscription parameter to white. In the handler PHP file, let's simulate receiving a URL to the generated invoice from an external system. And finally, we return the external invoice identifier and the path to the PDF file back to Bitrix24 by calling the BizPros event send method. It's important to specify the event token parameter, taking its value from the received POST request. The changes are all set. In essence, to re-register our automation rule, a complete reinstallation of our application is required. However, these steps won't be shown now, just to save time. We head to the automation rule settings in the CRM section. Then we repost and customize our automation rule for the appropriate stage. Additionally, let's add another automation rule to edit the field values of the current deal. I select two special fields in these settings, which I've pre-added in the deals for demonstration purposes. In one field, we'll store the ID of the external invoice received from the automation rule. In the second field, we'll save a link to the external PDF file. Let's add another automation rules that will notify us if the previous automation rules have successfully executed. Everything is set. Move the deal to the appropriate stage and wait for the message. When we open the deal, you can confirm that the data from the automation rule has indeed been successfully saved in the custom fields of the deal. Our automation rule not only created the document in an external system, but also reported it to Bitrix24. This enables users to implement the automatic scenarios they need. We've covered automation rules, and now let's delve into triggers. Bitrix24 users often wish to automatically change the stage of a deal or lead when specific events occur. Standard triggers include an order is being paid in Bitrix24, receiving an email from a customer, getting a new call or message in an open channel chat, and so on. In applications, you can create similar custom triggers. Some examples include an order is being paid on an e-commerce site, creating a new invoice, or receiving payment for an existing invoice in an accounting system, changing the shipping status associated with the deal, and more. Your application can register individual triggers for each of these key events. Users setting up automation within Bitrix24 can decide on which stages to place these triggers, and your application's role will be to inform Bitrix24 about the occurrence of a specific event for a particular deal or lead. This provides users with incredible flexibility in automation. They can choose whether they want to monitor a specific external event and respond by changing the stage. For developers, this significantly simplifies programming. There is no need to create a user interface. Your application will simply report the next event. Let's consider the example of an order payment. If you follow the traditional approach, your application would need to create a user interface where users can specify the stage to move the deal to when the order is paid. However, in Bitrix24, there can be multiple funnels. To facilitate these settings, your app would have to retrieve a list of all deal funnels. For each funnel, obtain a list of stages, create a user-friendly interface, allowing users to associate the order payment event with the specific stages using drop-down lists or similar options. Store all these settings on the application side and more. Additionally, also considering leads, this process involves a considerable amount of programming work. In the case of a trigger, none of this complexity is necessary. Users can simply add the triggers you've created to the right stages of the required funnels themselves, if they wish to. That's all the customization needed. Let's revisit our case study on integrating with external accounting systems. We'll now implement a trigger that activates when an invoice is paid in the external system. However, please note that this assumes that application has the technical capability to detect the payment status. If the external systems API doesn't allow us to access this information, the trigger scenario won't work. To add a trigger, we'll use the CRM Automation Trigger add method, which requires only two parameters: code, a unique internal identifier for the trigger, and name, trigger name visible to users in CRM. The second method we require is CRM Automation Trigger execute with the following parameters: code, trigger identifier, owner type ID, CRM object type lead or deal, and owner ID, lead or deal identifier. This method is essential for the application to inform Bitrix24 that a specific trigger has been activated for the designated deal or lead. In other words, it notifies Bitrix24 that a specific event has occurred for this particular deal or lead. It's important to understand that the application must inform Bitrix24 about which CRM object the external event pertains to. Taking our example of an invoice payment in an external system, the application, armed with the paid invoices ID, should locate the associated deal and then execute the trigger. The exact relationship between the invoice and the deal is determined by the application. In our case, we intentionally stored the invoice ID in a custom field of the associated deal. With this identifier, we can easily locate the deal within Bitrix24. Let's delve into the example code. And the install PHP file will incorporate the code that registers the trigger. Just like before, reinstalling the application is necessary for this code to run successfully. Now let's explore the payment handler PHP file. Let's assume this is a handler that receives a call from an external accounting system when invoices are paid. This handler takes the ID of the paid invoice as a parameter. We retrieve the list of deals using the CRM items list method. Here we specify the CRM object type as 2, which corresponds to deals, and set the invoice ID as the value of the custom field UFCRM169, etc. In this example, I've explicitly specified the custom field I added early for the sake of code simplicity. However, in real-life scenarios, you should obtain this identifier using the appropriate REST API methods. It's worth noting that the CRM item list method is versatile, allowing you to work with all major CRM objects from leads and deals to smart process items. It also supports complex filtering logic. We recommend using this method instead of the older ones like CRM deals list for better efficiency. Next, if a deal with the specified invoice ID is found, we call the CRM Automation Trigger execute method, providing the deal ID and our trigger code as parameters. That's all it takes. Now let's return to CRM and configure the automation. Place our trigger on the next stage of the funnel and add an automation rule to notify us when the deal moves to these stages. Save the settings. Let's say our application has received a signal from an external system that a specific invoice has been paid. To simulate this, we open the payment handler PHP file in the browser and manually enter the invoice ID in the invoice ID parameter. I've used this identifier from our demonstration deal for this purpose. Back in Bitrix24, we can see that the deal where this invoice ID was stored has indeed moved to a new stage. We'll also receive the corresponding notification. In essence, our trigger has been activated, Bitrix24 received the signal, and the deal was moved accordingly. In this practical and straightforward example, we've learned how to utilize REST API for CRM automation rules and triggers effectively. By integrating your automation rules and triggers into your applications, you can provide users with flexible tools for automating processes in deal and lead funnels, as well as smart scripts. Automation rules enable complex data processing, access to external systems, and the ability to feed data back into Bitrix24. Triggers, on the other hand, facilitate signaling external events to Bitrix24, enable users to automatically progress deals and leads through the stages of sales funnels. I recommend exploring the functionality of your existing applications and considering what useful automation rules and triggers can be added. This approach will empower your users with more options to make the most out of your solutions. That's all for today, but we've got more exciting topics ahead, so stay tuned and join the Bitrix24 REST API Developer Telegram channel, where you can connect with other developers and me.